Hello everyone, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of the Hammer Cast, the Hammer House podcast. And sorry, we can't see you yet. The camera is currently focused on me.
No,
Yep.
it's all good. It's all good.
And then yes, today we have another one of our community leader showcase.
Yes.
Okay.
What game is it today?
What game is it today? Zhan Hui, we are our special guest, Zhan Hui. Please tell us all about the game that you'll be introducing today.
All right. Hello, everybody. So my name is Zhan Hui, or you can just call me Zhan for short. So yes, I'm the local community leader for Infinity, the game. All right. So when people always ask me, hey, what's Infinity about? To put it very, very succinctly, normally I just tell them like, have you played XCOM before? It's basically...
Yes.
Yeah, it's basically XCOM on tabletop form. All right. So you know the whole idea of like you have some aliens. It's like you have human civilization in like near future. So they are not too far off, like in 40,000 years in the future or anything like that. But like maybe technology about 100 and 200 years later. And so everybody still have like laser guns and things like that. So it's all near futuristic kind of warfare. And then you have like aliens and kind of things like that. So the gimmick of it in the game, it's you know how in XCOM you have the Overwatch system? You move a guy and then suddenly a sniper shoots you from across the table just like that. That happens all the time in Infinity, and that makes the game extremely exciting and narratively rich for me. So yeah, I've played this game since 2016, and I would also like to say that this was actually, I would say I'm actually a rarity in the war game community, because for me, Infinity was my first war game. I've never played anything else before that. So
That's similar to me.
Yeah. So when I first started, I was actually looking around at some of the available systems out there. I had a demo of a few of the bigger systems, the usual ones, the usual suspects. I'm sure, yeah.
Yes, we'll come to that later.
Yeah, no name names. But yeah, I started from there, had a few demos. And ever since then, I had the first demo of it where this guy, he brought out what we call basically a giant mech. Okay, when I saw the giant mech, I was like, okay, this is the game for me. Yeah, so this game is heavily anime and mech inspired kind of things. Like if you like Ghost in the Shell and stuff like that, you'll see a lot of influences in this game also. So yeah, when he brought a big mech and then stomped over me, yeah, that kind of hooked me in a game. Like it was done in a very dramatic fashion. And yes, that's how I basically started Infinity since 2016. Yeah, and well, 9 years later, I'm still around.
Very nice.
The only thing I know about Infinity, by the way, I bought some Infinity models.
Really?
Way back in the day.
Okay.
Like who was it? I think Eugene tried to cycle me into the game. And I was like, okay, what faction do I want? Then I saw some space snakes. Okay. That's all I know about the game. Is it space snakes or space lizards? I don't know. I think they got eggs or something.
Is that a faction like that?
Yeah, I think what you are referring to is probably the space nomads. So one of the things that has always attracted me to the game and kept me, it's the law of the game. So many of the games out there, it's always, like apocalyptic. It's like, it's a grim dark universe and things like that. I mean, that's cool, but it never really appealed to my sensibility, both in terms of the aesthetics. And the law is very interesting. So like, what happened is that in the next 100 years or so, the US and the EU basically went bankrupt, doing some space colonization. And they were bought out by Indonesia and Philippines and basically the Southeast Asian countries.
I thought you were going to say China.
Oh, no. China, they are part of faction, but yeah, they are...
The global south rise again.
Yeah. So yeah, for law to focus like, hey, the idea that Oceania is the superpower in the future. They bought out the US, they bought out the EU. And and the Middle East also, they had a second golden age kind of thing in space. All those kind of things really appealed to me. Yeah. So yeah, and I think what you're referring to just now, the
space snakes.
The space snakes. And yeah, so what happened was that there were 4 of these spaceships, and then 4chan, so there's like one spaceship that's like a bit crazy. There's like all the furries and literal feminazis or so, and then it's all the law is pretty interesting. Yeah, you just think internet but space.
So you're telling me that we sent weeps into space and they became a alien superpower. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, one of the factions are. So that's the thing about Infinity. You got Space Weep faction, and then you got like Space Assassins faction. You got Space Ninjas also. So you know how like Ghost in the Shell, you got ninjas that suddenly appear out of the air, they disappear.
Yes.
So in Infinity, you have something like this. You have your ninjas that can jump up, climb the walls, and they literally disappear. You take the model off the table. Okay, and then they at certain points in the game, you can put them out again because they have like some kind of like thermal optic camouflage, things like that.
So funky.
I thought you said this is an optimistic game.
Yeah. Yeah, so technology has like...
Space Weeps, I don't, okay.
You're stuck on that.
Yeah. But, you know, I think there is like some interesting elements, I think, so far what I've been hearing in terms of like how society has been kind of flipped on its head. I quite like that kind of setting also. This kind of like alternate history and like you say lah. I think when you say more optimistic view of humanity, I kind of get what you mean, which is it's not like, oh dang, we're gonna get annihilated by aliens any moment now unless we have a space fascist that's gonna lead us into some like humanoid supremacy. So is it they're just all kind of like competing for like strategic interests and you know like planets, like I don't know like resources. Is that kind of like more or less the setting?
Yeah. In fact, what you touch on is right. It's like, so the setting isn't so much, there's like only war. Okay. So the idea is basically what we have in the current, in current society. So there's no outright open war. Okay. So actually that leads itself to the name. So Infinity, the name of the game is actually in the law-wise is what they call Code Infinity. So what that means is that it's as close to wartime, but without being open war among everybody. So everybody just sending like special ops agents and like limited insertion, like only, we're going to send in the secret ops to accomplish the mission. They're commandos basically. So yeah, what you're basically playing are commandos. They go in there, they finish their job, and they get out very quickly, and ideally they don't get caught. So that's one thing that differentiates this game also. It's all that kind of law that leads into fast, quick commando raids, basically. Yeah, each army, every time you fight, it's about 15 models, 10 to 15 models. So
So Infinity is classified into more a skirmish game than a war game. You will say that?
Yeah. If you are quite more often than not, you have 10 guys. Yeah, that can serve you very well in Infinity. Yeah, you only need 10 to 15 models to start in Infinity.
Nice.
Roughly, how long is the game? That's on average lah. Like, don't talk about some dude, they try to meta game and try to have this long drawn out kind of like situation. On average, if let's say normal players without any shenanigans, how long would you say a game roughly lasts?
Okay, so a game typically lasts about 2.5 hours. But I have to say that compared to other games of similar nature of this kind of war games, right? This 2.5 hours, you are constantly engaged. Okay? Later, due to the way the mechanics work, so like most other games, it's typically like I take my turn. Okay, then I sit back, then the other fella takes their turn. Then I only roll like armor saves. I don't really make true decisions on my turn. But the 2.5 hours that you have in Infinity, whenever I play it, it's like you're a movie all the time. It's like you're always constantly engaged, and later perhaps we can go a bit on the mechanics and why this is so. But this is the main draw for Infinity also. It's like when you play the 2.5 games, it's basically you're having a conversation with your friend over the other side.
From what I understand, it's because there's a lot of interaction between the reactions, correct?
Yeah.
Whenever your opponent does something, you get to react to do something as well.
Yeah. So one thing they always say is like, it may sound like a marketing line, they call it like, it's always your turn in Infinity. So it does sound like that, but later perhaps we touch a little bit. I hope I can demonstrate to you, give you a sense of what it actually means and why it's at the heart of why I've loved this game for the past 9 years and probably will still keep carrying on as my main game for years to come.
Yeah, so, okay. I've never played Infinity. I've never played one single game. I have a few miniatures. In terms of, I played a few different war games throughout my lifetime. Basically, each one of these war games, right, they kind of focuses on some aspect of gaming. So, let's say with Kings of War,
All right.
it's really about rank and flank tactics.
Yes.
And one of the key features of Kings of War is that there is no, that means when it's my turn, right, only I roll the dice. My opponent doesn't need to touch anything.
Yep.
So this in respect sounds like the flip end now, which is
The direct opposite of
it's
Infinity.
the direct opposite, which is always my turn, right? As what you say. So in terms of like some gaming aspect, right? Some nature of gaming. What would you say that Infinity kind of like focuses on? Is it some like, for example, if like I said, Kings of War is rank and flank, right? Meaning to say that the setup is always about 1 or 2 turns prior, so you get the payoff using maneuverability, using movement. The combat itself is kind of inconsequential. You'll win or lose the game based on your movements, and your movements are always about 1 or 2 turns behind. So you set up something a while back, then now it kind of pays off. So what would you say like Infinity touches upon?
Okay, so this one I'll touch on a little bit of like the mechanics. Okay, so that I think really differentiates Infinity from all of them. So the first thing is that in most war games, how it works is that all of your guys, you basically are doing your turn, you move them once.
Yes.
Okay, so in Infinity, it's fundamentally different. Okay, what happens is that all your guys, they provide one order. Okay, so if let's say you got 10 guys in your army, okay, like you got a werewolf, all right, you got a werewolf, you got William Wallace, like literally William Wallace. In the future, they actually clone William Wallace. They actually clone Joan of Arc. They actually clone someone that looks like Kristen Bale from that Dragon movie he did a few years ago. So there's a few of these like inside jokes over there. Okay, so everyone has an order and they all add into a pool. So what happens during your turn is that instead of, okay, I want to get this werewolf, he only has, you want to say like, okay, everyone does one turn. No. In Infinity, it's completely up to you how you want to
distribute the orders.
Yes. Oh. So if you really want to, this werewolf can be the hero of the day. Okay? You can say that, okay, I want to give 10 moves to him. He'll go in there, he'll jump in, he'll jump up, he'll murder everybody from the back, he'll jump in, accomplish your objectives, and do a thing. So basically, anybody in your army can become a hero.
Okay.
All right?
So the rest of the guys just stand behind.
Yeah. So that is in theory what usually happens in here. We always like, when we build army, we always like, okay, this hero is going to do the work. But what tends to happen in Infinity is that it is a funny game. Okay? It's like, when we play, right, yes, it's a competition, but a lot of times it's, what makes this Infinity different from everything is that it becomes a shared experience. Both of us are trying to create a story. You know why? Because remember just now I said you're a werewolf, right? You want him to become the hero of the day. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what usually happens is that he'll jump up there, he'll go up there, he will like, fight me, everybody. But you have one random guy with a rifle just shooting him with, like, he'll just come out and say, he'll provoke a reaction. Mm-hmm. Okay, because even though it's during your turn, the enemy still gets to do a reaction towards it. So their reaction can be anything from shooting you back. Yeah, so it's not like other games where you just shoot somebody, you shoot them, they just armor save. No. This game, you shoot them, they will actually shoot you back. Okay? Mm-hmm. So what happens is this guy goes around and then he gets shot and then he dies. Okay, your hero dies. It happens more often than not. Okay, your giant mech. Okay, you think he's gonna like rampage. Yes, he'll rampage, but one thing that differentiates Infinity also from your generic space games is that guns are actually deadly in this game.
Oh, okay.
So what basically means is that a gun in one of your normal guys, what they call like a recruit against a giant mech. So like maybe it costs 10 times the cost in terms of like army points. Mm-hmm. But a gun is fundamentally the same. They do the same amount of damage somewhat, but due to the way it's set up, it's very likely that if you get caught out in the open and you get shot by a gun, and if you don't make your saves, you will just lose your giant mech to a
single bullet.
Yeah. So what happens is that, yes, in your head, you will be like, okay, I'm going to have a good story of my werewolf comes out. What usually happens is that he comes out, gets shot, they die, and then your army starts to get smaller and smaller, and you need to start making new plans in your head. And previously, the guy whom you thought he was just there to support your werewolf, he becomes the hero of the day. Because now you spend the rest of your orders trying to make him do the job. Yeah. So, so this is what differentiates Infinity for me from like all these other games is, yes, it's about the game itself, the mechanics and the things like that. But it is the extreme tactical depth that you can really do. And because of this tactical depth, you have a lot of options. And this constant interaction from your opponent, that whenever you do something, they get a reaction. It becomes a story that only you guys have. You can be sure that there's hardly any other interaction all over the world that you have with your opponent. Yeah, so to put it in a nutshell, that's what Infinity is to me. All this kind of like constant interaction. Yes, the extreme tactical depth, but it's always working with your opponent to see like what's possible and things like that.
So far, right, what's luring me in, right, is that like one gun can like take down one big guy. Because you know why I love to, the type of player that I love to throw the most are the teamy players. You know, teamy players, they like to put the biggest, baddest thing on the table, right? And then you have this one lowly, let me just put the camera on that guy.
Look, okay. A scorpion mech.
So I like the idea of like one lowly, weep out space weep can just like pew pew, and then with a single rifle still can take it down. I like that a lot. Okay, because it punishes players that think, oh, I'm just invulnerable. Those like Death Star type players, I really don't like that kind of style of play. I prefer like a bit more diverse. Like everything is a bit like there's a bit of like
everybody contributes.
Everybody contributes. I think that's the type of gameplay where it's like everything concentrated in like one thing. I don't know, feels self-defeating to me. I've never quite liked that style of play, but so far this is what is luring me in.
So are you going to start Infinity?
Come.
That's the thing about just being a dad, right? Which is, I don't even have time for my Kings of War. You don't even see me anymore. There's just like no time for anything. But never say never. Never say never.
If there's one thing I'd say, there's a lot of people who look into Infinity that inquire about Infinity. It's mainly because of the quality of the models.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, Infinity always has a reputation of being a very, very good models to paint. So it's kind of like clean lines, good details.
Very nice models as well.
And the bigger ones are meta, sure. But the smaller ones these days, they are turning into hard plastic, so they're a bit easier to work with. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, when I first started Infinity, right, people always say like, oh, Infinity, the meta miniatures, they're scared of it. But I actually was fine with it. And then like many years later, I think just a couple years back, I tried assembling Necron flayers. They are worse than any metal miniature I've ever had the horror of actually trying to assemble. But okay, I mean, in all seriousness, yeah, there are many people who start Infinity, but they just come into paint only. Just look at the quality of the miniatures. Yeah, it looks very nice, well painted. And if there's one thing that's good also, is that there are not many flat surfaces also. So if you're looking for what they call like the slap chop fast painting, yeah, contrast paints work very well on Infinity models, right? Because the details make it pop much better than like flat Space Marine armor.
Actually, I still remember my Infinity models. They didn't have a lot of assembly to it. I think only some of them requires the gun arms, but like the body usually is like one solid piece.
Correct.
Then of course the arms no choice because some of them have a bit more dynamic posing, but it's nothing too crazy. So that's also something that I like. I still remember that. I think I still have them, and they're all still one piece. Like compared to some of the other miniatures that have like really like here broken, there broken, especially those like long pointy spears, and a lot of those funny GW models They love to have all this dynamic, like super dynamic posing, right? Standing on one leg don't know what kind of shenanigans. Then that all start to fall apart, start breaking. Transportation is a nightmare. So the Infinity models that I have, I remember they were like nothing too crazy. Some of them are just standing. Some of them have like the guns, like I think like rest on the shoulder. Some of them are. I mean, okay this one aside
Yeah.
This one looks a bit. But this guy this is the William Wallace guy, is it?
Yep.
Yeah. So
that's William Wallace. Freedom.
Hero bo pian Hero must always be a bit more dynamic But I mean, for the rest of the miniatures, actually, I'm looking at it now. Not all of them are super dynamic. They all look quite tame in terms of the posing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's supposed to be like realistic, kind of like near future kind of militaries. Yeah. So Yeah, you get cool guys. Yeah, sometimes got cool poses, but any day, yeah, you're a sniper lah.
Yeah. So while we're at the topic, so how much would it cost to start Infinity? Just now you said you just need 10 to 15 models, but in actual cost wise?
Okay, so the best way to start Infinity, quite honestly, is come for one of the newbie nights here that I hold in Hammer House. Okay, so every first and third Thursday of the month, I always have a table here in Infinity. This has been going on for many, many, many years.
Yes.
Okay, so not just that, during this period, I'm also working with Hammer House. If you come and if you're a completely new player, and if you want to start on a starter box, there might be we're working a kind of like promotion for that. Okay, so typically, if you want to start, how you want to start Infinity, you just go online, go to the website, and sort by faction. So you want Space Ninjas, look at the Space Ninja faction, the Japanese faction. Yeah, that's the weed faction. You want Dune, okay, which is basically my faction. Okay, so yeah, you got like your assassins, they call it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically Dune but in space. Or you want giant mechs and things like that. So there are different factions that special in different things, but just pick the faction that you think looks coolest. Okay, so with that, they also tell you that okay, there will be a starter box for each one, which will probably be about 100 to 150, about there. Okay, so your starter box, and then honestly, with that, you can start to get a few games in or so. And then you maybe buy, because those starter boxes give you what, around 10 or so?
Oh, that's nice. 150 for 10 models.
Yeah, so about that. Or what you can get is like many of the 2-player starters right now. So that's about like what, 20 plus models for about 220. I can't remember exactly how much it is, but yeah, then you just split it for your friend. But one thing I would really like to point out in Infinity is that proxies are not just allowed, but encouraged. Okay? So even in a rule book, right, they say like, if you don't have a model for something, just make sure that you will have something similar. Okay? Because one thing that differentiates Infinity from all the rest is that all your models, right, they are more or less a stand-in for a silhouette. So you can imagine this guy, he's actually a cylinder. Okay? So anytime in the game, when you move them around, because remember just now I said that, hey, when you move and then if your opponent can see it across the board, right? So like, let's say we got a sniper here, and then this troop moves up, and now it's within line of sight of this sniper. So in many other games, they always say like, oh, we go down and see, hey, I can see the tip of your antenna. Does that count as saying, okay, so in Infinity, they did away with all that. They'll just say, okay, remove your model, replace it with a cylinder, a cone, okay, a silhouette. And then as long as your sniper can see any part of the silhouette, it can be seen up. So in other words, that all your models here are basically proxies already. Just at the start of the game, you just tell your opponent, okay, I want this guy to represent what. Okay? So yeah, you may have 10 to 15 models in your initial army, but that can last you for a very long time. Okay? I think if you just, if you buy a starter box and probably like 1 or 2 support boxes of like those kind of like doctors, your medics that support your army and things like that, probably about 200 to 300 in total, that can last you for a very long time. Okay, until you like want to buy a special mech. Okay, fine. Okay, this one hard to proxy. You need something that's as big as it. Yeah, but yeah, the idea is there. So yeah, you really only need 15 to 20 models.
That's quite a low barrier of entry.
Yeah. I still remember last time back in the day, the GW stuff. I think for a 2,000 plus point army, you need about $400. Thereabouts.
How long ago was that? Because it's vastly different right now.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, $400 back then, I mean, this is like at least 15 years ago.
Okay.
So it's, like you account for inflation and everything, by now it's like almost probably going to be like, I don't know, $800. Not that much, 600 plus. Let's call it.
No, you're right. You're around there, 800 to 1,000
now
for
it's
2,000
like
point
800.
army.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, so, okay, that's pretty nuts. Yeah, so 200 or 300.
Yeah.
I think all things considered, it's in this day and age lah, it's about on par lah. Most games nowadays also I think now like so many things like one box is really like $100+.
Yes.
But the thing is, this game only requires maybe at most between 2 to 3 boxes.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
other games will require 5, 6, 7. I don't know how many boxes you need. So in terms of the game length, I mean, just now you were mentioning that it's about, let's say, about 2.5 hours. I have to say though, this one, for me personally, still feels a bit long. Is there a way to like reduce the, like, let's say pointage let's say, or make it even more skirmish, reduce the number of models? Is there like a possibility?
Oh yes. So the 2.5 hours game that I mentioned, that is typically played on a 4x4 table. So what you have in front of you, we'll use most of it. Okay, but that's the standard one. But the game actually, there's like the smaller skirmish mode where we play with. So typically your army is like maybe 15 troops. But there are modes where you can play with a smaller size table, so maybe half of it, and your points are corresponding lower. Yeah. So yeah, we do sometimes play this kind of low pointage games. It's tighter and it rewards like different kinds of tactics because you may not have enough points to bring like your big sniper guns and things like that. So it becomes more close range combat. So it's not just the game but smaller, but it's actually different kind of tactics that you need to use and to build a list for. Yeah. So Infinity has a lot of like, depends on how far you want to go. Yeah, if you want to go like a big full table all the time, yes, 2.5 hours. You'll take some time to set up the terrain also because terrain is extremely important in Infinity.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, so one thing that people, when they look at Infinity, is terrain always captures them at first. Because the terrain, it blocks line of sight. Line of sight is much more important in this game than many other games. So yeah, if you play a smaller game, you just have to set up a smaller size table. Just have a few of these boxes, you set them all up. You're ready to go pretty fast. The game can last about maybe an hour to an hour and a half if you play what they call the smaller pointageous game.
So what is the full size? You mentioned there's a point system to it. What's the full size pointage like?
Okay, so I mean, in game wise, they call that like 300 points and 6 units of what they call special weapons. So it's like your big guns, okay, your heavy machine guns. So like, if you're an army, like your support weapons are your big machine guns, your sniper guns, they are like additional costs. So in a normal army, you can typically have enough to fill one big guy, or if you want to bring a mech. Okay? So one mech normally costs like 60 to 80 points out of 300 points.
Oh, wow. One
Okay.
third.
So
Almost
quarter
1/3.
to one,
Yeah. So one third. But you need a good support group that can assist them as well. Okay, because I may segue a little bit. So one thing that I like about Infinity also is the emphasis on doing objectives and missions. So in many other games, the objectives and missions, they tend to be an afterthought. Okay, you just bring like one. So what happens in many other games that you just have like one list that does everything. Okay, they'll just like, I'm going to bring my list and then we just roll for the mission on that day. Okay, so in Infinity, the emphasis is on the missions because the different missions, it's not just like kill everything. It tends to be like you need to bring something, you need to press a button, you need to go accomplish special objectives, and not every one of your guys can do it. So just like in real life, you have your special ops team, you have a guy with a gun, but you also need a guy who is good at hacking and things like that.
I see.
Yeah. So yeah, you need to build a team that can work for that mission. Yeah. So this focus on objectives and trying to build a special list for every mission. I think that's what makes Infinity fun as well.
So okay, here's what I wrote. Here's what I really want to know now.
Okay.
So I'm a very competitive player. Okay, and you know what I love more than anything? I love to go overseas, right, and go and trash some foreign butts. Okay, that's what I love to do. Okay, I like to go to Malaysia, I like to go to Taiwan and go and trounce all these wannabes, right? They think they are so good. Okay, us Singaporeans, we gotta represent. So I want to know, okay, does Infinity have number one, a competitive scene locally, and number two, a competitive scene overseas, abroad?
Yeah. So by its very nature, right, Infinity can become very competitive. Okay, because remember just now I mentioned you have a lot of tactical options in your turn. Like, it's not so in normal war games, like everyone move one, but no, in this game you need to decide which unit you want to support and how it goes and things like that. So your options are like, if you have 10 guys in your army, you basically have like 10 routes, and then it keeps compounding. So if you really want to go competitive, yes, Infinity can become very competitive in that sense. And there is a very strong competitive scene overseas, so like the US and the EU, especially because Infinity is actually from a Spanish company called Corvus Belli.
Yep.
Okay, so they're actually pretty big in Europe also. So yeah, in Singapore, we do have a small competitive scene that play very tough, but generally, the focus on Infinity is for having fun. Yeah, it's like I said, the having a shared experience with your friend. Yeah, I've also had the pleasure of actually going overseas, like to Australia. I've played in some of the scenes there. I've been to Canada, and there's one thing that always struck me about Infinity is that, the community tends to be more welcoming and friendly. Okay, and I'll go a little bit into this. Okay, so everything I mentioned earlier about how Infinity plays, how it's a shared experience between your opponents and things like that, right? It tends to eventually weed out those kind of like super competitive players that piss off their opponents. Okay? So it's like, for example, when you move your guy from one end to another end of the map, you need trust of your opponent to say like, hey, can your sniper see me? Okay? If you really want to go into a granular, very granular, it just slows down the game. So it becomes a game of trust between your opponents. Every 5 seconds, you ask your opponent, hey, do you have a reaction? There's a lot of this kind of interaction. And if you are not the kind that is like the super interactive kind, or who just a bit antisocial, right? What we have found is that the community kind of weeds them out eventually because they're just not fun to play with. So what this means is that the community tends to be left with people who are fun to play with. And this is not just happens in Singapore, it happens overseas also. So whether it's the Australian community, the Canadian community, right? People that are always very friendly one. And they're always like, hey, we'll talk about it, the shared experiences, our games and things like that. And yeah, that's one thing that has also made me stay in this game for 9 years or so. It's not just the game itself, but yeah, the community, it's fun to play with. And when I go overseas, it's also the same. So I think it's something about the game and the people it attracts.
So it's more about social interactions.
Yeah.
More than the game system itself.
Yeah. Fundamentally, if every 30 seconds you have to talk to your opponent about what's happening on the table, right? Yeah, it's a bit more social.
Okay, so I think you touched on something that kind of like also, I just have to ask, right? I just need answers on this. Because in terms of like antisocial players or players in which winning becomes everything, much to the detriment of, let's say, like other players when their focus is on fun. And as you mentioned also, that there's a lot of implicit trust in what you have to, like how you go about this game.
Yep.
So I mean, you also cannot just be like, oh yeah, every time I have a player that's kind of like skirting the boundary of like good taste or like proper sportsmanship, then we just exclude them. So is there any other mechanism in which I can say, hey look, like you have to do things like a little bit better, or I'm not sure about this, can we get arbitration, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like there are people that's like there are some people for sure is out and out, okay, exclude. But there are some it's just like, okay, they're really always just in the gray zone, right? And they're just definitely violating good taste, good trust, good faith,
but with room to improve.
Or maybe they're ignorant, or they're a bit younger, or they just have too much bloodlust. It's always a line to straddle, right? So in terms of either in the game mechanic itself, like is there like something in the rule books, or is there something like the community kind of like emphasizes, or like when we speak to the 40K guy, the guy who does the bootcamp, Joel, he kind of like, from the ground up, the emphasis has always been about
Communicating with your opponent.
communication, like implicit trust also. Like so for Infinity, I guess it's a very long-winded question. Let me rephrase it in a very short way, which is there a mechanism within Infinity, either through the game rules or through the community enforcement, that kind of like allows for people who are straddling the gray zone?
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, yes, the rulebook has the typically like, okay, just play. Yes, there's a lot of like implicit trust. Okay. But I think instead of this kind of like explicit instruction in the rulebook, I think what makes Infinity encourage more communication, it's really the mechanics itself. Okay. So there is way more communication in the game of Infinity between you and opponent than in many other systems. Okay, because during your turn, when something happens, there's always something that your opponent can do to react.
Yep.
Okay, so this implicit nature of the game, really, this fundamental nature of the game means that there is more like back and forth between you and your opponent. Okay, so I, as a community leader, and I've also been organizing Infinity competitive events. So every 4 months or so, for the past 9 years. Yes. Okay, 8 years. Okay. So I find I don't really have to step in most of the time, because the players by themselves, they will just talk it out with each other on the spot already, because they already talk to each other so much in the game. They're always like, hey, can this work? Can this work? My intention is to do this. Okay. So there is an emphasis on playing by intention, of like saying that, okay, I move my guy to be able to see you. Instead of saying like, I will take my ruler, and then they measure to the extreme spot, and then your opponent said, oh, no, you actually never move like 0.1 cm. Okay, yes, technically they are supposed to do that, but the way in terms of like most people play it, how they play it, not just in Singapore and worldwide, it's always like we talk it out with our opponent first. Okay, we say that, okay, I want to move my guy with the intention to see you. You don't have to move it to like the exact 0.0001 cm. It's the understood by opponent and things like that. So when you have this kind of trust going on between you and opponent already, right, that makes it much easier to sort out any disagreements that happen. So if I as a TO has to step in, usually it's a coin flip kind of like interaction already. They'll say like, hey, actually my thing cannot see you, and then I have to bring out laser and things like that. But usually the game encourages you to speak to your opponent, and yeah, you can sort it out on the spot. Okay, so that is like within an event itself, within the fundamental mechanics of the game itself. The second part is just like your the other community leader that you mentioned. Yeah, the emphasis is always on like how people play. Okay, I in the past 8 years, 9 years that I've been running Infinity in Singapore, we never had the issue where I really have to step in and say, hey, you really can't play like this. Because like I said, I think the system itself attracts a certain kind of player, and it keeps those kind of players. So I never really had to step in and say like, no, you like what you're doing is not cool and things like that. Usually it's mainly just kind of a rules dispute, and then we just solve it on the spot. Then afterwards we just go back to playing the game. Yeah. So, but I mean, the focus is always when I've tried to build out the Infinity community, it's try to let people know like what are the norms that people play. So like the playing by intent instead of playing to the exact centimeter that people could do if they just read the rule book like that. But nobody plays like that in real life, not just in Singapore, but all over the world. They always play by specific intention, by talking out with the opponent, saying what they want to do. The opponent agrees, then they work it out from there. So
I mean, playing by intent is the word that I was scrambling for in my brain, and thank you for using that word. And I've tried. Not say try lah. Playing by intention is functionally a beautiful way to play any game, and
I sense a butt coming.
yeah,
Okay.
that's always right. So
Sure.
that's me, right? So the thing that I always have an issue, and I think I brought this up with Joel as well,
Yes.
which
Yep,
is
yep.
that in terms of playing by intention, there's always this unintended consequences, which is, okay, I play by intention, I move this thing, I can see you. Then later you say, okay, because you can see me, my this other thing therefore can see you. So my intention is made clear, but your intention might not be so clear. And this is where it's like, oh, okay, now we need to break out, the micrometer, and we need to go and determine like, okay, like laser and whatever. And when competitiveness, in any given human now, it's not just any particular game. This one is a universal human nature thing.
Yeah, I understand.
So in terms of like gaming by intention, all well and good. I love it. For you personally, as community leader, I know you said that okay, like the players they talk it out, and you occasionally arbitrate. In terms of this particular game, does it become sometimes a bit difficult for certain type of players, even if they say, okay, I think this may be good, but I kind of want things to be a bit more precise. Like is this a concern that you might have, or the other players might have, or someone has reached out to you and say something like this before?
Okay.
By the way, to make my intentions clear, now we all podcast by intention. Okay, so the thing is, I feel like this game is, it definitely lays itself out very, very clearly. It's really like very specific type, and for me personally, like me as a gamer, I like to game in a very specific way. And when I started coaching back then the Warhammer,
Young Bloods,
the 8th edition. I mean, you can ask any of them. I coach them to be very precise. It's never about by intention. The intention is like is a afterthought. Like you can talk about your intentions afterwards. But everything you measure down first. You put your markers down. You put your tape measure down. You don't just lift up the whole thing and then just yoink it across. Like you let your opponent see all of your precision. And I feel like this type of gaming, in addition to gaming by intention, eliminates a lot of miscommunication thereafter. But it's difficult, right? It's time consuming, it's difficult, it requires a lot of brain space. And I would like to see Infinity grow as a community also, right? Anything that helps Hammer House,
yes,
and anything that helps the communities within. My concern, me as a gamer personally, when I hear someone talk about Infinity in this way, I want to know what about precision gamers such as myself who wants, I really want you to lay down the ruler and says this is where I want to be. What if someone comes to you with that?
Okay, so, and this is actually also written in the rule book. So remember just now I said that when terrain is very important in Infinity, right?
Yep.
So terrain in many other games, yes, there could be when you play a game, right, there could be a lot of like dispute. People say like, hey, this balcony blocks this and things like that. Okay? Which I've seen how in like 40K, instead of playing actual terrain, now they actually just have like little square blocks. Yeah. To make it more precise and things like that. But Infinity, it's right at the start already. They say like, at the start of the game, talk to your opponent to say like, if let's say there's a window in this building, talk to your opponent. Just ask them like, hey, are we playing windows? Because if you don't want to play windows, then yeah, we just don't play windows. We'll just, because we later need to lift up and things like that. So even at the start of the game, right, you are already encouraged to talk to your opponents to sort out like, what are the parameters of the gaming that you want. Okay, so that helps with this kind of like precision gaming. Okay, and I would actually argue also Infinity is also better at this kind of precision gaming because your models can be replaced by silhouettes. Okay, so many of these arguments in perhaps like your 40K or things like that. So I did play a bit of Q team. Sometimes they say my gun's sticking out. This guy, rules as written. This model can be shot at. But Infinity, all these kind of arguments, it's completely ruled out by the fact that every model of a different size, they have a defined silhouette. So that cuts down a lot of this kind of minute arguments. So in terms of whether like the measurements and things like that, so there's one other thing that Infinity does different from some other war games also, is that there's no pre-measurement. Okay? So when there's no pre-measurement, you have to say that, okay, I want to move forward. Okay? So that is, in a way, you talk by intent first. But whether or not you actually can move forward, you still need to put down your measuring tape after that. Then you move based on that 4. So the very nature of there's no pre-measurement involved, and it's you have to say what your intent is, and then you actually measure it out to see whether your intent actually works. So that's big into the rules of the game already. And the fact that, that combined with being encouraged to talk to your opponent on like what's possible on your table, that actually clears out a lot of the confusion that might happen due to terrain. And the precision based on like all your models actually can be replaced by a silhouette. So that cuts down a lot of like stupid line of sight arguments. I can see your cloak. I can shoot you. Then like, no lah. Infinity, we go more into like the tactical elements already. It's like, can I outflank you and things like that. Yeah, rather than trying to get bogged down by this kind of like minute arguments.
I still remember Justin Pua, one of our long-time community leader, and he's functionally my mentor lah, whether he agrees with it or not. Yeah. I still remember he whenever his idea of painting and setting up the miniature, right? The miniature must be as small as possible. Because he ever kena before. It's like, I can see you. It's like, how on earth do you see? The cloak got this one little flap at the corner, right? I can see that. See, it's red color somehow. I can see it. Yeah. Then from then on, right, his philosophy is all the cloak all must be. Actually, this kind of like what they call true line of sight can get very silly. I always feel like true line of sight in gaming should be very, very curtailed. You have to like, as long as like I like that cylinder idea silhouette. as a silhouette idea as a counter to this particular type of like rule shenanigans. Is so silly.
Yeah, right. It writes out all those win at all cost players to say, hey, your
at least there's like
little antenna is picking out.
At least there's like, okay, the rule book, is final, right? We put it there, the silhouette, no arguments.
Yeah. So that's why I would actually argue is like, yes, Infinity encourages play by intent, but it is precise in many ways also. Because they just try to get rid of all these kind of like small things that you're going to argue about, and just get straight into the meat of the game, which is, about like tactical combat. You like want to flank,
just roll dice.
Yeah, you want to shoot stuff. Okay, so they define, they try to define all the things that can be defined, so you don't get all these kind of silly arguments. There are any line of sight things. Okay, at some point in Infinity, sometimes you got to give and take also. Okay, there's sometimes we do practice true line of sight. So even if your cylinders here, sometimes we'll try to like go down and squint and things like that. But I think that's the nature of the game. That's just you just talk to your friend. At most, you just say at the start of the game like, okay, if I have a sniper up here, what can I see from the board? Then your opponent at the start knows what to avoid already. So in Infinity, we try not to do a lot of this like gotcha kind of stuff. Yeah, because although it's not fun when you suddenly play something and then it's like, hey, I didn't intend to do it, but then you suddenly.
So I guess why the game is so long for a skirmish game to be 2.5 hours, to me it's quite long. It's because of all these interactions, right? You have to check. You can see. Oh, I put here. Then we have to check for like maybe 2 minutes. Okay, then here, no.
Yeah, so that's why we just typically say like, okay, my guy wants to run from here to there, and then I'll just ask my opponent, do you think you can see me anywhere along like this route? So like let's say this guy, my werewolf, he wants to move up this corridor. Then I'll just ask, do you have anybody that's looking out here? Yeah. So instead of just like move my guy and then ask him to see, right? At the start, I'll just say like, hey, do you roughly have anybody? So it cuts down a lot of time. Yeah, and I find that's the fun of the game. It's like, rather than I move my guy, then I never see your thing down there. Then like, okay, then I punish for that. But that was like public information. There's no information. Yeah, so yeah. I think that's the name of Infinity. We try to, the game centers around rewarding like your tactical, your strategy, rather than catching you at gotcha moments.
Right. John, you got any other questions you would like to ask?
Yeah, so I would say Infinity like most other games outside of Games Workshop is niche, right? So how do you think that players can, or I would say other players from other systems can learn from the game, get to know the game, and then maybe, I know you say that every first and third Thursday is a demo day. Yes,
correct.
I know. But to get people started on a game, it's not really just come down for demo day. Sometimes they need to maybe look at the lore, look at the miniatures.
Yep.
So how do you think that as a community leader or as a shop, how can we market this game so that more people get awareness of it?
Okay. So the first thing we always tell like new players who always ask like, oh, what's the best faction? Oh, what's the best thing? Right? It doesn't work so much like that in Infinity because things are very fragile in Infinity. Like all your guys, right, only got 1 health. Okay, they all die fast, and all the guns are very lethal.
Don't get attached to them.
Yeah, don't get attached to them. So in other words, we just tell people like, go to the Corvus Belly website, just scroll through the different factions, see what aesthetically appeals to you the most. Okay, and then from down there, they also have like different short descriptions of like what each faction does. So you have your Space US, that's where you get the werewolves, the Space US military. Then you have the Hak Islam, the Space Dune. And just now, what John mentioned, you have your Space Chan. Okay, so just see what aesthetically appeals to you the most, and then just read up more about it. And then, there's this.
So you said read up more about it. So are the rules online for free?
Yes.
How about the law? Where can you find the law?
Okay, so one thing that I tell people that blew my mind when I tried other systems other than Infinity is that all the rules in Infinity are free.
Nice.
Okay, not just that. So your army builder, right? There's an official army builder that is released on all the app stores and things like that. You just download it and then you scroll in it. You can see like what armies and things like that.
What is it called?
So it's literally called Infinity Army. Okay, so when you're a new player, you go to the website, see what army looks cool to you. Afterwards, download this app called Infinity Army. Okay, and not just that. Okay, so the rules are online, not just in like a PDF form kind of thing, right? Where they just put it there. No. So Infinity, right? Remember the army app that I mentioned just now? So down there, you go inside there. Oh, you see like, okay, this woman, she has a gun. What kind of gun is it? You click on the gun in the app, it directly links you out to a wiki. Okay, so it's a rules wiki that is linked to the Army Builder app. So you don't have to like keep referring, and it's they constantly update this. So every time there's an update, they will just automatically update. So you don't have to download a new PDF, print out. No. Infinity, everything is all there. You just download the app. It's all linked to the rules wiki. Very easy to cross-check. Yeah. So if you're a new player, first, see what you like in terms of aesthetics. You go to the website, look for the short histories they'll put down there. Then afterwards, download the Infinity Army app, Android, Apple, whatever. And then that will lead you to all the rules that they'll try to explain. But if there's one thing I would emphasize after that is like, after you have done all this, right, just reach out to me or your Hammer House, Johan. They'll point you to our way, because I've been running a community WhatsApp chat for the past 8-9 years. Okay, so this is for any enthusiast of Infinity in Singapore. Okay, doesn't matter whether you want to play somewhere else or things like that. We don't care, as long as you're interested in Infinity.
It's not affiliated to any shops.
It's a store agnostic kind of thing. Singapore very small already. No sense to try to break up anymore. But yes, anyway, reach out to us. Then we'll tell you like, okay, what are the best next steps you can do and things. Yeah.
Alrighty. Maybe Johan, you'd like to we can start to wind down.
Promote.
Let's promote some stuff, events and whatnots.
Yeah.
And
so
after that, for yourself, you can we will ask you to direct new users like how to get on board. So you think about that first. But before that, Johan, let us know Hammer House, what's going on?
Okay, what's going on? These 2 months will be pretty quiet because we'll be preparing our trip. So Hammer House is going to the UK Games Expo to open up more lines of game systems, what we can bring in, So yes, we'll be flying off 28th May and coming back on 1st June. We are looking at keeping the shop open through whatever means. So stay tuned, but we might be closed for some days in between that period because all of our staff are flying there to the UK Games Expo. Yes. So in April, so this coming weekend will be Blood Bowl and Marvel Crisis Protocol on the 20th of April. And then the following weekend is always the last Sunday of the month is always 40k meet and play. So 27th April will be 40k meet and play at 1,500 points. And then we move on to May. In May, the first weekend will be a painting workshop. It's filled up ready. If you're interested, you can drop by our website. There's a painting workshop for beginners under the section of more information. All right, you can sign up there. Moving forward, 11th May, the second Sunday will be our Eldfall Chronicles demo. So Eldfall Chronicles, very similar to Infinity, in fact, but more fantasy with magic instead of guns. So the miniatures are fantastic as well. So if you're interested, you can drop by on 11th May to come for the demo day. And then following week will be Age of Sigmar. Yep. Whether it's Spearhead or a full game event, we are not decided yet. So we'll update along the way. Follow us on Instagram or our Facebook to be informed about it. And then the last weekend will be again 40k meet and play. Yep. Pointage is also not decided yet. It could be 1,000 points for May. And then we'll be off to UK. Yep, that's about it.
Exciting times.
Yes.
Actually, I think even for painting, most of the time you can just bring down your miniature, come down to Hammer House. I think Quan Jin will be here.
Okay, so yes, speaking about that, Quan Jin, the guy, I think it's second episode? I'm not sure. Forgot. Third episode. Third episode. So Quan Jin, the guy who talks about painting, he will be here on Saturday evenings together with another painter to sit down and paint. If you are interested to join in their session of painting, you can drop into the Hammer House painting WhatsApp group. Yep, I think they will be arranging it there. And so recently, I've also consolidated all Hammer House chats into the community. So if you like to jump in between in between the chats, you are welcome to do so. I'm sorry I cannot bring the Infinity one in because it's exclusively for Hammer House. So if you like to join the Infinity one, ask the Hammer House staff. We'll direct you to Zhan Hui to invite you into the chat. Yeah? I think that's about it for me.
And if you are listening to this and then you are interested in Infinity, right? Okay, Zhan Hui, you gotta let us know how these newbies they get on board. How do they get in touch? So on and so forth.
Well, first thing, get into that WhatsApp chat with us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so either you get in a WhatsApp chat, you ask Johan or
anybody in Hammer House.
Anybody in
the
Hammer
staff
House. Yeah. Okay. Second thing is that turn up for one of the Infinity nights every first and third Thursday of the month. It's a perfect time to start also because I'm working out with you with them where if you come for the Infinity night, I'll show you the demo. Then if you want to start an army then, you get a small discount on one of the starter boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's honestly the best way to start.
And lastly, under our section of demo games, you can also click the Infinity and then you can leave your contact there and then I'll direct you to Zhan Hui as well.
Fantastic. Many different ways. There's no excuses, guys. Okay? If you want it, all you have to do is to reach out your arms and then after that you'll all be there. Okay, all at your fingertips, ready to rumble. Zhan Hui is here ready to jump up walls and buildings to get Overwatch into oblivion. Okay, so it's all there. Maybe I'll leave it to Zhan Hui.
Any closing
Any
statements?
closing statements? Okay, give us a 10 seconds closing statement before we sign off.
Okay. I just hope you get a sense of a little glimpse to why I feel Infinity is so different from many other war games out there. And I hope that this has sparked a little bit of the interest in you and how like it fundamentally plays different. It rewards more about like your tactical depth, strategy, and all that kind of things. So yeah, I hope you can see why I love it. And I think it's a good chance for you if you're looking for an in-depth game and with like cool science fiction miniatures or so. That's an interesting aesthetic that's like different from your generic grimdark stuff out there. So yeah, I hope to see you in Infinity. Now is the best time to start because there was just a new rules release where they just clean up they streamline a lot of the rules. Perfect for newer players to come in as well. So yeah, reach out to Johan, reach out to me, and hope to see you in Infinity.
All right.
All right. Certainly your enthusiasm is infectious. I am feeling the tingles in my unspeakable regions.
Okay.
Okay, and with that, that shall be the end of today's episode. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you very much.
And then we shall see you next time.
Right. Bye.
Bye.